TheorySabers.com.
We've just got to the end of Star Wars Skeleton Crew. We had the finale last night, and the show kind of died with, I guess, a bit of a whimper in terms of viewing figures. Didn't mind the actual show. I thought it brought it to a satisfying end. It was a fun little adventure. Overall, I thought the characters and especially the kid actors actually were pretty likable. They did not devolve into the crap that I would have expected from modern day Disney Star Wars, and I think that's pretty commendable. I just could be curious to hear what your guys' thoughts were on the show itself and like whatever qualities it had.
A lot of it was absolutely fine. Just sort of watching it being like, yep, this is just a perfectly okay show for the demographic it's after. Obviously, I would have preferred certain things be given more focus or more time, or certain things be tightened up, but at the same time, I just wasn't passionate about it. So it's just like, whatever. There it goes. That's that.
There it goes. It's like watching a piece of garbage float by in a canal.
Little.
Look at it go there.
It's a particularly nice looking piece of garbage.
Yeah, sure. Like maybe garbage is wrong. Like, I don't know, a kid's doll or something that's mildly soiled.
Well, you know how I kind of rate it is, you know, if a child were to give you a picture they drew, he's like 7 years old, are you going to critique it and be like, well, this should really look like a Da Vinci or should look like a Ralph McQuarrie or something. So, yeah,
I would. I mean, I would destroy him.
I'm sure you would.
You call this
exactly
piece
what
of
my art
art, you
teacher did to me in
asshole.
kindergarten.
When we say it's for kids, though,
like the
It's supposed to look like
adults
me.
that have worked on this thing have been compared to children now.
Right. Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
I get you. And it's like, I to some extent, it's like, okay, I get what your target audience was, and I know why you did certain things. Like you shy away from really any outright violence, and you know, the bad guy's never too bad, and it's never too scary or anything. I just wonder if perhaps they've misjudged their own audience a little bit on this one. And I say that because I get the impression, one, that your average Star Wars fan is probably like a 50-year-old man at this point, like, because I don't think many kids are watching it anymore, and that's just completely like gut feeling on that one. And I think the second issue is the fan base now is only really responding to shows or movies that have got really recognizable things in it, like the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, for example, or even Mandalorian to some extent. It managed to carve out a niche for itself. With this, I felt like there was no real draw to this show.
I watched your video where you said like everyone basically needs like an Anakin or a Luke, and it's like, yeah, but also had they just put like a Kyle Katarn or someone who's just a good character, I think it easily. But then also this released after Acolyte, after Kenobi, and after everyone had already well and truly checked out. So even Jude doing his best, like touching on like Cade Skywalker, Pirate Jedi. I didn't think he went full bad because I didn't think he was bad ultimately. That he just was, it was a threat, and ultimately they called his bluff. He never would have actually killed the kids or the parents, which is why he just stared there at the end. And they definitely set up for his second season that we'll never get, because when they finally did something by people that actually liked Star Wars and didn't hate us, no one was there to watch it. So yeah, I was whelmed the entire way. Not overwhelmed, not underwhelmed, whelmed. It was, I enjoyed it, and I wanted more, and I loved the kids and the performances, and they had a character arc, but wasn't enough.
Do you think it would have been much better received if it had come out, let's say, post prequels, if you just dropped this?
Yeah, of course.
If this had been Price of Reason, Film Comics Explained, there's a couple people that like at the beginning they were very like, and by the end they were like, yeah, had Disney just done this at the beginning before all the goodwill was gone, we would be in a much different position. And also it probably would have been better as a movie.
Yeah,
you know, honed, tightened up.
I could see that.
I'd even argue if they'd put it out like right after the sequel trilogy, because at the end of the day, like, we hated the sequel trilogy, right? But there were still little kids dressing up as Rey and Kylo Ren and all that stuff. And unfortunately, you know, they were so lackluster that even though they caught kids' attention at that time, like they don't hold up like the original trilogy or even the prequels. So all the goodwill is gone, and people's like the relevance of it as a brand is just gone. So had they released something like Skeleton Crew right after, I'm sure it would have done great, because the people that just took their kids to watch the sequel trilogy are obviously going to put that on for them. But they're like 10 years too late at this point, and coming right after the Acolyte, come on, it wasn't going to
I
work.
would also go as far as saying the notion of a Star Wars TV show has nothing special about it anymore, if ever there was.
No.
Like it's
Yeah.
there's so many, and some people don't even know which one's a which, that it's just like, who cares? Like there's another show, okay.
And the timeline confused people. Old Republic, is it old Republic or just the High Republic? And they never really clarified. So they threw out things that may pull people in, but not enough. And as pointed out, everyone that would have introduced this to kids, you alienated and told the F off. So like, I'm not making my niece or nephew watch this or asking, you want to watch Skeleton Crew?
That's definitely where a feed of a child audience is going to be cut off, is the people who their family who used to love Star Wars and not interested in Star Wars anymore, so they're not going to push it to them. They're going to be like, hey, check this out because I can enjoy it too. They'll just be like, no, you can watch the other
that's
shit
why
on Disney Plus, if anything.
That is why I envisaged that was their plan. It's like the adults are going to get enough stuff in it that they can enjoy it, like while they watch it with their kids. So like they can all kind of gather around and just have this little fun adventure. And there's enough like Star Wars-y elements to it that the adults will get like a little nostalgia kick to a degree, and the kids will be amused by the.
I had fun guessing.
Adventure.
What is the vault? What is Jod? Was he the Inquisitors find him? How does he? I had fun again, like guessing what was happening in Star Wars, even if I know all roads lead to Jake Skywalker.
You know what it kind of felt like? It was like after being repeatedly beat up by the Acolyte, you're just happy that this person's just not beating the living shit out of you.
Said some nice things to me. Didn't hit me.
Yeah. So I'm just like,
he told me he was sorry. So
yeah. It'll never happen
it'll
again,
be
honey.
fine now.
Yeah.
Did y'all like check my messages on Hinge? How is it that you're learning this? That's exactly the fucking dynamic.
I think there would have been 2 times that they could have released this where it would have done really well. One is directly after The Force Awakens, when interest in Star Wars was at an all-time high, but we hadn't had The Last Jedi to sour everyone's opinions of the brand. You know, that was a time when actually people thought, Disney were actually doing a good job, relatively speaking. Or after season 1 of The Mandalorian, when the whole concept of Star Wars TV shows had just launched. Mandalorian was a surprise hit. Everyone was enthused, thinking like, it's been reborn on TV, and that's where the future lies. And if it had come out then, maybe 5 years ago, I think it would have done pretty good.
Especially because you could say Mando's the young adult show, Skeleton Crew is more of the kids show, and the concurrent content for.
Well, we say for kids too. I know this is pointed out. That doesn't mean it has to be bad or lazy. There's plenty of shows that were aimed at kids. I know I reference you as pointing out all the time. I when I say this is for kids, I mean more like it follows certain tropes and rules that those movies follows. When most of those movies, the kids would all die horribly, but they don't because it's tropey and made for kids. Those are type of the rules that this show follows, and it works most of the time. Sometimes it gets a little ridiculous, but I found it worked most of the time.
Well, like the crash landing of the ship in, I think was the final episode for Robot Girl. I forget it. KB, was it?
KB.
Yeah, Robot Girl.
I did have the exact thought of, well, this is a kid's thing. She can't die. But if it were an adult thing, it would have been kind of cool to have her die there. And the kids have to acknowledge that was their responsibility, that they had her do that.
Even the goddamn droid survives despite getting his fucking head lopped off.
Which I thought was kind of a cool, there's a few highlights in the show, but one of them was when he, Jude Law just fucking kills Smee. I was like,
Brutus. I like that very much, yes.
That wasn't too bad. Oh, no, I wasn't even talking about that, but that was also cool as well. But I'm talking about the droid where he decapitates Nick Frost. It's good stuff.
Yeah.
Especially because at that point, there's a couple of things that don't make any sense. Like the fact that she just says unclaimsies, reclaimsies, no one can claim the ship. I was like, what the fuck does any of that mean?
Yeah, and the droid's just like, it's good enough for me.
You can't double stamp a triple stamp, Lloyd.
I had to put myself in like a 7-year-old's mind, and I was like, okay, yeah, sure.
Yeah, that sort of thing makes you really like the droid. And he says like, stay back, kids, I'll take care of him, and then gets killed. I was like, that was an effective payoff for a kid's show in terms of tragedy sort of thing. But then he just comes back and I was like, okay, kid show.
Yeah, because I get that the whole thing is just like Treasure Island, but like with space pirates and stuff. The only element that I thought was just a little bit like narratively confused, or just like unintuitive was the whole idea of like the kids are just trying to get back to their home planet, but you also want to sell the idea that they're going out on this big adventure, but they're kind of not, because they don't want to be on an adventure. They want to get home, but also their home is the source of the treasure that they're all kind of looking for. And like, you know what I mean? It just feels like they're trying to combine too many elements into one thing. It would perhaps make more sense if, I don't know, their planet was dying or something, or it had some major problem and it needed this special resource that they didn't have. And so they go out on this spaceship to go and find it. And then their goals just happen to align with Jude Law's character, who's just out for treasure. And it turns out they're all going to the same place. Something like that, where you can either be trying to get home or you can try and go out on an adventure, but it's kind of difficult to do both simultaneously. And I feel like the show kind of grapples with that a bit awkwardly throughout its whole run. Like, it just felt like it was trying to mesh two concepts that don't work that well together.
It's kind of a big plot point, though, for the Star Wars lore. So I was just say the inclusion of all of a sudden the New Republic has this much funding. It could definitely use that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, but does it even make sense? Why wouldn't the Empire have known about it and done?
Well, that's the point. Is they did. That's why I didn't at the end. Is the last message that the overseer supervisor got was that the Jedi were traitors, meaning that came from the Republic under Palpatine, meaning cities knew about the goddamn vaults and just left it there for a rainy day.
That's what
maybe.
I'm saying.
Yeah,
the
thing is,
the
like,
Empire knew, but
well,
why
I mean,
wouldn't they? You know,
were the Empire ever short on cash? Like,
No.
did you ever get the impression that they were
I thought
strapped
this
for
was the
resources?
source of the cash. Like, this was the bank. This was.
No, I
mean,
the
like,
source
literally,
was
when you're
all the other
you're
planets.
when you're a galaxy-spanning dictatorship, I don't really think you need to worry about central banking or anything. Like,
No.
if you-
Okay, well,
you just
then why
literally
does the
command
planet
them to.
exist, though?
Just like
that-
do it or I'll blow your planet up. That's it.
the whole reason. There's no way you just lose track of a planet that's got more riches than the whole galaxy combined.
Yeah, but isn't it even like, isn't the concept of like their worth, like Old Republic credits, just based on people's belief in them? It's like, it's no different from like our belief in paper money. Like, it has no intrinsic value. It's just stuff that we assign value to. And like, Old Republic credits are worth something to space pirates because they're essentially just gold bullion. But I don't know. I guess the makers of this show, I don't think, thought about it any deeper than that. It's just the equivalent of gold bars for pirates, but in space. That's literally all it is. Like, I don't think it's that deep.
But the whole plot of Andor is them trying to get funding for their war. So like, this is like this could fund all the wars.
I was
like,
going to say, value is value. If they can create shit tons of money from, even if it is the equivalent of gold bullion, then just like use it.
I don't know, man. It wasn't too. You didn't have to think about it too much. It was chill. It was
right, but I'm saying is it was fun. It gave you just enough that you could think about it a little more in the ramifications.
Yeah, I mean,
and,
sure. I definitely agree with Mahler. There were some moments where I was just like, okay, this is dragging on a little too long. Like that planet they went to with
The whole planet?
the kid army.
Yeah.
Well, again, these are like, it touches on slightly interesting ideas, but like it all gets wrapped up so quickly and easily. Like that one gets wrapped up with like, hey, what if you guys were nicer to each other and didn't do the whole war thing anymore? And then the other girl's like, yeah, that's a good idea.
Well, and I thought it was to show how nice. Look at how they grew up on a vault world, basically, versus how
and
characters are growing up.
And you can draw things like that from it, but it's like you're kind of doing the writer's work for them on that one. It's like, okay, there's some of these things you can imply from what you see, but it's like the script doesn't really touch on it that much because it doesn't have time. It's like it's got a 30-minute episode to wrap up this entire like subplot and then move on to the next thing. It's not quite enough. Yeah. It's kind of like what's her name? Like angry boss girl person. Fern, yeah, like I actually appreciated that they gave her a character arc. It's like she's admitted at one point that she's not very tolerant of people who can't keep up with her. She's not very tolerant of Neo because he's a fucking blue elephant thing and he can't climb very well because he's got stubby arms.
He's an oil man.
Yeah,
blue elephant thing.
I love that thing. My God.
And she's apparently not very tolerant of KB either, because like KB doesn't want to like slow her down by saying like, look, I've got all these problems with like these implants that I've got and I need to stop and fix them. She doesn't want to do that because it'll piss her off. And like she comes to the realization by the end of the episode, yeah, maybe I'm a bit harsh and I'm a bit intolerant and I need to be a bit more understanding of other people. Yeah. It's tiny little baby steps, but it's like it's a character arc.
There were some moments.
Yeah. Look at them go. It's like you wouldn't get that in other Star Wars shows, I don't think.
No, I think it was Okay.
There were a lot of nice messages for kids in this one, and I think the main thing being, dream big, for God, what was his name? Kip
Wim?
Wim. Yeah.
Whim, yeah.
I do the breakdown of the video and it's out. It's done. Yeah, and there's a little message like don't trust everyone, with Jod and fight for your friends and all that stuff. And
Yeah,
It wasn't key jangling, but when he said your focus determines your reality and the thing about
Dude.
attachments, that's fucking key jangling
Dude,
done right.
I'm
Sorry,
like,
I loved it.
Is it where did he get this shit from? Is it
It's like a
this
Jedi praxium,
Qui-Gon's?
clearly.
Well, yeah, maybe. But that was probably the most interesting part of the whole show for me was that this guy, it's kind of a new, fresh story where it's like he was actually trained by a Jedi and then he watched them get massacred by Order 66.
Yeah.
Like
This
once
was
they
actually,
found him.
some of the me and Drake were talking about just before we started was like, anyone want to see that show?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
was that Inquisitors
I
that
want to
found
see
him
him
and
go on an adventure.
killed his master in front of him, then he
Was it
escaped?
Vader?
Was that right? Like, bro,
But then it
where's that?
determined his worldview forever, which is just the world is a harsh and horrible place, and you have to take what you can while you can.
Right.
I was
He's
like,
not
yeah,
Because
wrong.
makes
I totally get like where they could take him in season 2, like they'll give him a slow redemption arc. Because
Did you see
like,
John
he's
Watts
already-
talk about it? He's got it written that it's supposed to have a time jump. He's not going to do a Stranger Things and say it's the next day. So
Yeah,
if they
it's
do it,
probably not going to happen because the
Probably
viewership was in the toilet, and it's a shame
Yeah.
because, yeah, like I say, man, like if I had to pick a show that probably deserves a season 2, it'd be this. Like, I don't want to see another Obi-Wan Kenobi show. Like, I don't want to see them butcher Obi-Wan Kenobi anymore. I don't want to see another Book of Boba Fett. But
Well,
this,
we've
I'd be
got-
like, yeah, there's legs to this. There's potential there.
Pendus was telling us how he watched a little bit of the Skeleton Crew, and as we all know, it's over now. So, what'd you think?
It felt like crazy rushed, but with what we got, I was pretty satisfied in terms of the story they were telling. It had a whole lot more potential, and it's sort of a confusing project to me, quite honestly, because it meanders a lot in sort of the middle, and then it goes straight, not even breakneck. It just sort of ends. There's not really even a big climax. I mean, I guess there's a speeder bike chase, but that's really honestly it. I think it's running into a big problem that a lot of these other shows are facing, and that is that they so desperately want a second season that they're not telling a completed story with
Yeah.
their first big outing. So overall, I'd probably give it, like a 7, just solid 7. Pretty enjoyable show, rushed ending. Overall, extremely disappointing time with this coming out. I watched your review of it, and you had mentioned that if it had come out immediately after Rogue One, you would have thought the numbers would have been pretty good, actually. And I agree with that assessment.
Yeah.
All things considered, this is on the better end of the Disney Star Wars era, but I would say barely. Sort of
Which
like
isn't
with
saying
what you
much.
said was Solo.
Really not saying much at all.
Lukewarm.
Yeah.
Lukewarm.
Anakin warm. Yeah.
Ooh. Well, no, that's good. That's Mustafa hot. We want that. We want
That's
Anakin
true.
We
warm.
do. We
That's
do.
true. What'd you think, Dash?
Look, risking saying something really superficial and coming off as if I have some kind of deep insight. I think I had a profound realization watching this because I had the exact same thoughts as Stoops about everything just rushing at the end. I was really enjoying it. It was kind of meandering, but I thought they're going to do a conclusion that was going to be satisfying. But there was no conclusion. There was just that little bit of amazing speech by Jude Law. And then you wanted to know more, and they knew that we wanted to know more. But two things. First, Jude Law as an actor really carried this. And I realized why I liked SM33 is because he was voiced by Nick Frost. So clearly when Disney puts the money behind it and gets the actors, they can elevate whatever they're in. But to my moment of profoundness, as I digress, I think I appreciate and respect the fact that Disney is finally being honest with what it's doing. I think this is the first Disney Star Wars show. And I'll explain it like this. When Disney acquired the Star Wars IP, they said that they were going to honor George Lucas's legacy, which, as we know, that means just leveraging legacy characters into whatever they do, and obviously following the trends of social issues in the real world. Like they really didn't focus on Star Wars lore. I think we can all agree. They really just tried to leverage the IP and do whatever they thought the audience wanted to see, which really doesn't, you don't draw a line in the sand and say, these are the stories that we want to tell. I think Skeleton Crew, and think about it like this, is so Disney. Pretend you didn't watch it in the comfort of your home. Pretend you were in Disneyland on a theme park ride. Skeleton Crew belongs there. Like, it feels like someone's written it for a theme park, like they're building it in the background right now. As soon as I realized that, I went, holy shit, this is actually what Disney Star Wars is. Focus to kids, feels like a theme park ride, probably going to build a ride about it. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my God. That's
somewhat
where we're at.
adventurous while you're watching. Once it's over, you forget about it.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's like what I said in my review. It feels like an arcade game, like an 80s, 90s arcade game, which, fuck, I love arcade games, but at the end of the day, it's an arcade game.
Totally. I don't know. I think that
Wow.
clearly
Thank
the
you.
Star Wars that Disney is developing is more in line with pushing whatever agenda that they want to service. So this does remind me of like older Disney Star Wars era. But I don't think that it's going to transform into this with Disney, because with the low ratings of Skeleton Crew, I don't see them viewing this as a positive evolution. But with all of that said, George Lucas would probably love Skeleton Crew. And
Yep.
he would probably love the creatives that made it, and that it is for kids, and that it is for a new generation. And if you approach it like that, I think it makes the show a whole lot more enjoyable. But, you know, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see, man. We'll see what happens, you know.
What did you guys think of Jod's backstory? Because that's
Probably
sort of the
most
big reveal.
interesting part of the show, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah, I ran and I made this AI version to test my AI skills. Terrible, by the way, to try and like to make that happen, because I was so excited. I was like, I want to watch that show. Like, it's obviously Jude Law's acting and some pretty decent writing, but that's all it takes to make something compelling. Why they just give us little snippets and then just throw it away? No, they're not. Obviously, they're teasing us for season 2. They know what they're doing. Why?
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. They wrote it with the potential hopes of a season 2, but thanks to the Acolyte, it shat all over that. So we'll never get that. But that's the problem with shows, I think. They're not writing to tell a story. They're writing to keep it open-ended. Maybe it'll get picked up at some point. Maybe the reviews will be good. Maybe enough people will watch and we'll get greenlit for a second season.
It's funny you
This is
say
not-
that. John Watts actually said on Forbes, we wanted to make sure this season had a satisfying beginning, middle, and end. That if people want to see more Skeleton Crew, we'd be happy
Yeah.
to make more when they're asked about season 2.
Right.
But that's what they always say. And then they have creepy voyeur Plagueis peeking out of a cave. And it's just like, this isn't subtle at all, guys. You're hitting me in the head with a sledgehammer.